I just learned some jazz today, it's true.
What's up, everybody? This is Kirk, the producer of the Passion to Profit podcast, and it's been a minute since you've heard from us. Well, it's actually been 41 days since you heard from us. We hope that you enjoy this episode. It's a replay of a conversation from a different podcast. This is the Amplify Podcast. Of course, you heard Vince with Emily the last time we released an episode, and now you're going to hear Liz with Emily. So please check out Emily's podcast. It's called Amplify. There's links in the show notes. But let this episode kind of ease you back into hearing Liz's voice, and then in a couple weeks from today, you'll be able to hear a fresh off the presses, brand new conversation between Liz and Vince. And we're excited to bring that to you. Thanks for your patience over the last month or so. We're excited to be back. Let's start this thing.
Hello and welcome to the Amplify Show. I'm Emily Richett, former TV news reporter turned media entrepreneur. I've spent my entire career shining a spotlight on inspiring people doing incredible things. In each episode, I share an interview or message to help you amplify your business and your life. Thanks for joining me and get ready to amplify. Hey everyone, today our guest is Liz from The Lemon Bowl. Liz is a food travel and lifestyle blogger. She has been in the business for over a decade. That's right. She just celebrated the 10th anniversary of The Lemon Bowl. Liz is actually local to where I live here in Grand Rapids. We're in West Michigan, and it was just so fun to have her on the podcast. I think of Liz as the original blogger. She was in the game before people were really monetizing it, and it's so fun to talk to her about the growth and the changes the industry has had over the years, over the last decade. We also talk about how we both weathered the COVID storm with our businesses, and as moms, we both have 2 kids and had to jump into homeschooling while running our business, and in very different ways. While my business kind of tanked in one way, although it required a lot of my energy to help my clients that were going out of business, Liz saw an explosion on her website, on her social accounts like never before. And at the same time, she wasn't able to really lean into that because, well, COVID and pandemic and all the things moms had to do at that time. So we talk a lot about that. She is also the co-host of the Irie Lemon podcast with Vincent McIntosh. We talk about her podcast, some of her new ventures that she's doing, and I just love talking with Liz so much. I also had the pleasure of being on Liz and Vincent's podcast as well. So that will be coming out, and I hope to share some of that and to have him here on the Amplify Show. So without further ado, here we go. Congratulations. First of all, 10 years in business.
Yeah.
For the Lemon Bowl. I think you are the first legitimate blogger / influencer I've ever really known.
Really?
In life. Yeah, I think if someone would have said, like, when you think of an influencer or blogger, who do you think of? And I feel like you are the original blogger. I mean, 10 years is a awesome achievement in business, but it's a pretty fresh career.
Yeah.
I mean, you were an early blogger.
Yeah. Now that you say that, it's funny. Yeah. 10 years, it makes it like real for some reason.
Yeah.
That's a decade.
How did it all start? For people that haven't followed your journey, you have such a cool story.
So in 2010, I had a few people just suggest I start a blog because I love to cook, and people wanted to know what I was eating. I had lost about 65 pounds. And whenever you lose weight, everyone wants to know, what are you eating? How'd you do it? What's the secret? So obviously, I believe that weight loss is 80% nutrition, 20% fitness. So I realized the blog was just the easiest way to show people how they can also live a healthy life by, nourishing their bodies with good food and food that doesn't taste boring. I'm a big fan of high flavor food because I'm a foodie. I travel a lot. I eat out a lot. So I really just wanted to empower people to live a healthier lifestyle. And a blog is just the easiest way to do that because it's evergreen content that lives online forever.
Yeah. And the content you were creating, I bet I could go back to some of your first posts and they're still relevant.
I mean, recipes they're evergreen. So, a fashion blogger, she might post an outfit, but in 3 months that outfit might be out of stock. So that blog post is obsolete now. Whereas in the food blogging world, recipes are evergreen. So for example, my first recipe, you'll love it. It's vegan. It's a wheat berry and beet salad. Actually has, I think I put feta cheese in it, but it was from the farmer's market, Fulton Street Market. Anyways, that recipe is the same now as it was 10 years ago. So it's evergreen content. So I think that's why it's probably lasted so long.
Yeah, that's awesome. When did it turn into a career for you? When were you like, oh, this is not just the hobby where I throw up recipes on a blog anymore. This is my actual path.
Right. So it took me 3 years to make my first $100. So I had put some Google sidebar ads on my website. I probably did that in year 2. And Google doesn't send you a check till you make at least $100.
Okay, yeah.
So it took a long time to make a dime. And I think that's, I guess that'd be like a lesson I have to anybody just starting out, is that if you really want to have a successful, long-lasting career, you need to be doing something you're willing to do for a long time without being paid. So I felt like, I wasn't doing this to get money. I was doing it because I was really passionate about empowering others to live a healthier life. So when that $100 check came, it wasn't like I was like waiting on it or relying on it or needed it. It was really just like the icing on the cake, the cherry on top of the sundae. Like, oh my God, I just got paid to make recipes. This is amazing.
Yeah. And so what were you doing for money if you weren't counting on that as your pay?
Sure. So I have a hospitality degree from Boston University, and I also have a minor in marketing management. So I graduated from college and was recruited by Marriott International right out of college, and I graduated right after 9/11. So I'm not a stranger to crazy economic times. That was not a great time to be looking for a hotel job, but I was very lucky to get recruited by Marriott. And then I worked with Marriott for 5 years in sales. And I ended up relocating to Grand Rapids to open the JW Marriott downtown. So that was the perfect opportunity to relocate my family back to West Michigan, where I grew up, where my family lives. So it worked out well.
I remember that so well. I just came across my old hard drives as a reporter, and there I was in front of the lit up JW because it was still dark. I think I was out there at like 5:30 in the morning, my live shots, and
I remember that
time.
That was such a fun time. And opening a hotel is a really cool once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and experience. And I was really happy to do that. So ironically, fast forward to another economic crisis, I was laid off in 2008. So graduated after 9/11, laid off in 2008. So just to be clear, though, I didn't start the blog till 2010. So I'm just kind of giving you the back story. Yeah. So luckily, the day after I was laid off, I was recruited to work for an organization called Meetings Michigan. And what we did was we traveled around the country to sell the state of Michigan to different organizations that hosted large national conferences. Yeah. And we wanted people to have their, national engineers conference in Michigan, or have their a national nurse conference in Michigan.
I'm so schooled in this. We work with Experience Grand Rapids too.
Oh yeah,
for years. That was my first client. Was exactly the same thing, but we were on the PR end covering those conferences that you were helping bring.
Exactly. So I represented the whole state, almost like a statewide CVB, which there isn't such an entity, but Meetings Michigan kind of played that role. Yeah. And so different CVBs and hotels were members of Meetings Michigan, and I was basically the face of Michigan around the country, to not to get like Meyer to do business locally, but to get companies outside of Michigan to come to Michigan to bring their conferences, which makes sense because I'm so passionate about Michigan, and I'm a natural salesperson. I had come from Marriott sales, so it was the perfect segue. And this is where we start to see the path come into play. It was a home-based position, just 30 hours a week, and I had to get my LLC. So that's when I became an entrepreneur, started my own LLC, and worked from home for the first time. So I had to, to your, as you know, when you work from home, you have to be self-starter, you have to be motivated, driven, organized. And so I think that kind of is what kind of shaped the way to down the line, do that now.
And then you got that first $100 check from Google, and you're like, that's it. I'm quitting everything. I'm putting all my eggs in this basket.
So I worked for Meetings Michigan for several years. And in 2010, I started the blog, and that started to build up. And then what actually happened, it really wasn't the ad revenue. The ad revenue wasn't going to be good for a minute. I started to get some paid work. So food brands reached out to me to create recipes with their products.
Yeah.
So one of my first clients was actually Stonyfield Yogurt, who is my client to this day,
Yeah.
and Bob's Red Mill. So I reached out to them. I found one of them on LinkedIn. I found one of them on their website. And these are, hello, my first blog post was wheat berry salad. So that's a Bob's Red Mill product. I don't even know who else produces and manufactures wheat berries. But these are two products that were just always in my kitchen that I had been using for years. And I felt like I would provide them value by showing people other ways to use them, because most people don't really know what to do with the wheat berry. And most people just think of yogurt as like a topping for granola. But we grew up in a Middle Eastern household where plain yogurt is like part of the savory world. So that's how that kind of started. And then over time, I started to get more paid work. And then I officially quit my day job in 2013 and found out I was pregnant a day later with my second.
Oh.
So that was kind of fun.
Wow. That was a sign from God.
Yeah.
If you can do anything, Liz.
Right.
I will show you, give you the biggest challenges.
Exactly.
I've known you for years.
Yeah.
And I still learn a lot about you from Instagram. Or the other day, I didn't know your whole story, your fertility story.
Oh, yeah.
And you made a post, and it was like opening a book of someone I know and turning a page. Like, I actually don't know all of this.
I know. I never wrote about that at the time. So yeah, it was actually, my husband was having like a surgical procedure as part of our infertility journey. When I was in the hospital waiting room when I wrote the first blog post. I packed a wheat berry and beet salad to bring to the hospital because I didn't want to eat in like the hospital cafeteria. So literally though, and this is what's so cool about life, is you look back and realize everything happens for a reason. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
And I know that if we hadn't gone through that infertility battle, I wouldn't have been in that hospital waiting room writing a blog post. And I'm certain the blog was partly also just a way for me to channel my energy and distract myself from like the sadness and of, like when you're trying to get pregnant, every month you're mourning a loss. So it doesn't go away. Like if someone dies in real life, they die and then it gets better over time. With infertility, you get that mourning every month. And so you're literally on this wave of mourning that never ends until you get pregnant. And the blog was a healthy distraction for me, sort of like like fitness, that, versus like buffering with alcohol or overeating, I put it into growing a business.
And it's so cool because now you're in this world that had you never could have known 10 years ago that influencers and bloggers would be such a thing, that there would be young men and women in college thinking, this is a career path for me now. There is going to become the influencer degree or something of the future. But you and I sat on a panel, I think it was a year ago, for a marketing association. And we talked about that. And we were with Jill Gottgleason, who is a fashion blogger, also local to Grand Rapids. And it was so cool to hear the perspective for both of you, because you both started your blogs before it was really a thing that people were recognizing, and now very successful at doing that. So where did you see that happening? Where like all of a sudden people are catching on, and now people are just starting blogs with the goal to monetize it from day one?
Yeah, that honestly frightens me that people are intentionally wanting to have it. That makes me nervous, because I think in reality, I think what happens is that you look on Instagram and you see all these gorgeous photographs and everyone's basically putting out their best selves, myself included. But in reality, someone having a popular Instagram page or a lot of likes on a photo, or not even a lot of likes, and just maybe she's really beautiful, maybe the photo is perfectly edited, maybe she's always off on beautiful trips, whatever it might be, I think it's kind of glorified. And I guess depending on what your goals are, but most of what you see on social media, I think there's a difference between having a beautiful Instagram account and having a really successful, high profit business. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times people confuse the two and assume, oh, she has a great Instagram account, she must have a successful, high profit business. Yeah. Again, that's my goal in growing my business. Now, if that's not your goal, that's a different story. But I think to when you say people are wanting their career path to go down that route, I want people to really realize that very few Instagrammers, influencers, bloggers the percentage of people that actually make it and succeed is very small.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dependent on a lot of factors that people really don't realize. But
The amount of time that goes into running it as an actual business behind the scenes, I know is a lot.
And amount of time, how it's monetized. You know, a lot of Instagram accounts, they might get a free shirt in the mail, but I don't know if they're really getting money.
Your business actually grew in many ways.
Very unexpectedly. So when all the shelters in place took effect, what happened was that everyone was forced to cook at home. Many people for the first time, which I didn't really realize how few people cook. But, you know, there's a lot of younger people that they just don't cook very often, if at all. So what happened was almost overnight, everything spiked. Web traffic, Pinterest, Facebook. Our Pinterest was up 800%. And it literally started March 14th, the day of the shelter in place. So all of a sudden, you know, for example, you're wanting a cocktail, well, your bar is closed. So margaritas were spiking, like every cocktail, Moscow mules went crazy. And just every sort of recipe went crazy because so two things, people were cooking more. Here's the other big thing. Once we got locked in, everyone was glued to their cell phones. Mm-hmm. So again, Pinterest went up 800%. I already have a really good Pinterest, you guys. I'm not new to Pinterest. I was already getting millions of followers on Pinterest. So millions of people, we went from 2 million. I don't even remember. I feel like I saw it once over 9 million. I mean, it was changing by the day. Yeah. And the irony is that I was now homeschooling without daycare, without house cleaning, without any sort of like support. And so I really couldn't even like maximize it or pay much attention to it or dive into it. It was literally just trying to respond to, because the other thing that happens is that you get more DMs, you get more comments, you get more questions, you get more, it takes more work, the customer service needs like skyrocketed. So it was crazy.
Well, are you an Enneagram 3 as well?
No.
Did you tell me? No.
I'm a 2-wing 3.
A 2-wing 3. Okay.
Yeah.
I experienced the same thing in the sense of, no, businesses were not knocking down my door. Throwing all my clients that were, because our niche was restaurant, tourism, they were all in crisis. Yeah. So I also felt that burden of things are going crazy. And yet I also have 2 young kids at home. I have no help. My husband was working in an essential business, so he was gone all day. It was madness. And I didn't come up for air for like a solid month and a half. It was really crazy there. And my emotions throughout the day were just like,
we're also in a pandemic.
Yeah.
So, you know, all of our friends, like a good friend of mine pointed out that normally in times of stress, we have our network to kind of help support us. Well, our networks basically dissipated because everyone was in stress. Everyone was panicked, especially with, you know, everyone has different opinions about, you know, people react very differently during pandemics. You probably saw that.
Oh, yeah.
Some people panic. Some people like belittle people. It's like the whole weird thing. Everyone's on edge.
Yes.
Everyone.
That is, the Enneagram is cool like that because everyone points to a different stress. And I saw that at play. I do find the Enneagram so interesting because I think in stress too, when your business is going crazy, in normal times, you can double down on that. So I would have doubled down on course correcting my clients in crisis while also realizing, oh no, 80% of our business is literally in flames right now. I better go grow and course correct. And for you could have doubled down and grew and leveraged met the needs that were being demanded, like, you know, all the questions and the comments. And we were both kind of stuck. And that, for me though, a lot of beautiful things, it took me 2 months to see the silver lining, but a lot of beautiful things came out of it. Mm-hmm. And so how about for you when you were able to double down and start leveraging and growing, what have you done with that? Yeah,
there were definitely a lot of silver linings. You know, for one, I started doing more lives and live cooking tutorials with my kids, and those really took off. Those are still some of my most popular videos. And again, with recipes being evergreen content, that's content that I now repurpose and reshare all the time. So I was able, it's almost like what I love so much about the pandemic is that no one needed to like have makeup on anymore. No one needed to have like a clean house in the background of the video. Kids could be running in. I've worked from home forever. My kids never went to daycare. So it was really nice. It was almost like finally the whole rest of the world was in my shoes, where you have a conference call and a kid might walk in the room. Mm-hmm. Whereas I feel like before the pandemic, there was such pressure to make sure like the door was locked, the sitter was with the kids, out of the house. Everything was just perfect. You had hair and makeup done. And it's like overnight, we all got on the same level. Everyone had kids home. No one had a quiet background. No one had time to get their hair done. And I really thought that was so refreshing, at least for me, because I feel like I could let go of any of that need for a nice, calm video or phone call experience. So that I think was a silver lining for sure.
Agreed. I liked that a lot too.
So that was not always the case. Especially a lot of my clients don't have kids. I work with a lot of PR firms, which are predominantly young females in an office with AC and the snack bar. So it was really nice to welcome to the real world, ladies.
Yeah,
You're in your room in your tiny studio in New York City, not so great anymore, is it?
And locked in because there is
literally.
What do you wish you would have known 10 years ago, starting out? What would you have liked to have known in growing your business?
So my answer to this question, which I do get a lot, is probably a little not expected, but I actually am so glad I didn't know more than I knew. And the reason being is that I think nowadays people starting out, there's too many resources. And what I find is that when you have a manual, when you can Google 20 ways to start a blog and get 1,000 different blog posts, you can listen to 20 different podcasts about how to grow your Pinterest, how to grow your Instagram, how to grow your newsletter funnel, how to do what's happening is that everyone is spending so much time in that research mode and fact-finding mode. And they're literally, so it's, a couple different things you see, but many people just spend their whole time researching when they could have grown a platform by then. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to get into motion to learn. And I got into motion, and that's how I learned, and that's how I grew my business. The other reason it's so important is that when you study how everyone else is doing it, whether you're mimicking or looking at other people's Instagrams or their blogs, or going to a meetup or a networking event with other bloggers, what's happening is that you're going to try to recreate what other people have done. And the issue with that is that just means you're going to be a shittier version of Susie versus being the best version of Linda. Mm-hmm. So instead of trying to do what other people are doing it, just do it how you would do it, put blinders on, and don't really worry about what everyone else is doing. Because if I actually just wrote a post, 10 business lessons in 10 years, which we can link to in the show notes if you wish. But one of the things I said was stay in your own lane. And I know that if I had all those resources 10 years ago, I'm sure I would have looked them up. I'm sure I would have done some of that research. And what would have happened is that the Lemon Bowl would not be what the Lemon Bowl is, because I would have been trying to be some other version of someone else's, blog that had gone ahead of me. So,
yeah, I love that. And it's so nice you started at a time where you probably felt less judged for it.
Okay. There was no Instagram, for one. Mm-hmm. Pinterest was invite only. No one had iPhones with these amazing cameras. I took photos on an iPad. There was very low standards, and it was great. And there was no such thing as food props and food styling and professional lighting. And it was amazing. And I'm so grateful because I feel like I don't love photography. So if I was starting now, I couldn't afford a photographer if I was just starting out. So I probably wouldn't do it because I'm I suck at photography.
Bar would be so high. Yeah.
So high. And I'm so glad, because the other irony that I've learned is that some of my most popular recipes have the ugliest photos. Ugliest photos. And I think people get too caught up in their Instagram feed, and they're really missing the point that are you providing value? And is it something that people want? So for me, it's a tzatziki recipe. The photo could be ugly. Who cares? People want to make tzatziki at home. So that's going to perform really well, regardless of the lighting, regardless of the photo, regardless of anything. Are you providing value, and is it useful to people? That's all. people get so caught up in production quality. And I think that you're going to, it's like when you start a podcast, like my first episodes with Vince, like they're not great. The sound isn't perfect. Like the photos aren't great, but you just got to get into motion, and that's how you'll learn, and that's how you'll correct. And people care less about production quality than if you're providing value and it's useful to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just so much harder to get to that point, which means there will be less competition in a way, because most people, they have all the knowledge at their fingertips, and they're going to keep studying it, and they're going to keep acting before they start. And then therefore they will never truly start. And the person that just kind of starts a little bit ugly, make it pretty as I go, they are going to be miles ahead of you.
Miles. And they'll start to get the money where they can then outsource the photography, outsource the social media, outsource like the other things. But if you do research all day, and guess what? You're not doing anything.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love so much what you've built and how you share about the things that you do outsource. Like, what's one thing you're outsourcing right now that you're grateful for? Whether it be at home or in your business.
It's definitely photography for me. I have this incredible photographer, Amanda, and I'm so grateful for it, because with having her at my photo shoots, I can really focus on developing recipes and styling the food so it's beautiful, and cooking, which is what I went into business for. And I think a lot of people, when you go into business, you forget that running a business means that there's, finance, HR, accounting. There's all these other aspects to a business that have nothing to do with the actual creative form that you really love to do, which for me was cooking. So I only cook for my blog 2 days a month. The other 28 days are spent doing things I don't love. So on the days when I'm cooking, to be able to just cook and immerse myself in that creative process of recipe development is such a blessing. And I'm just so grateful. I will never take having a photographer for granted, because I'm not good at it. It stresses me out. And I think when you focus on, doing what requires your creative genius zone and outsourcing the rest, your business is going to grow naturally over time, because you're not stressed out, and your brain is free to have the big creative ideas that grow your company.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people connect with you and learn more?
TheLemonBowl.com. You can find all of my recipes. I'm on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook at The Lemon Bowl.
Where should we start? Give me one recipe that people should start with.
Okay. I think you should all make my Syrian salad. It's a Middle Eastern salad. You could literally put it on, the dressing works on anything you have. Like right now it's CSA farmers market season. So if you've got romaine, any kind of lettuce, whatever your favorite veggies are, the dressing is lemony, olive oil, garlic, mint. It's really good. It's perfect for, we're in salad season right now. So, and we eat it every night. My kids gobble it up. If you're listening and have little ones, my kids adore the salad. And it's super easy. And it's something that I think really gives you a good indication of what the Lemon Bowl is all about.
Okay, that is on my list. And you have a podcast as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I have the Irie Lemon Podcast, which I do with Vincent McIntosh. He is a local chef and restaurant owner of Irie Kitchen here in West Michigan. And, he's Caribbean, he's 23, he's a guy. We're completely opposite, and we come from two different worlds. We live in different neighborhoods, different generations, different ethnicities. But we are both super passionate, driven business owners with two different perspectives. So our podcast, the Irie Lemon Podcast, is all about business, entrepreneurship, as well as a lot about personal growth and really getting your mind right. Because we really think that your mind and your thoughts are directly related to your results in life, whether that's success, weight loss, relationships, anything in your life, your bank account statement. We really believe it's completely connected to your thoughts. So we talk a lot about how, we're not experts. We're just talking about what we do to keep our mind right so we can really keep our businesses going.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I didn't know Vince was only 23.
Isn't that nuts?
Extra impressive. Yeah. I know.
He opened his restaurant at 20. So that alone, I'm like, you're amazing.
That's so cool. And people can hop over to your Instagram to learn more about his restaurant. And I love your latest podcast. You talk about how the community came together to raise over $100K. By the time you kept posting the GoFundMe, and I was never near my credit card to do it. And by the time I finally, a couple nights in, I sat down, pulled up my credit card, and I got there. I was like, wait, I reading this right? He's already over 100K. I was like, wow.
It's crazy. Irie Kitchen has a bit of a cult following. I was there opening weekend last weekend, and I mean, they had lines of people out the door, and I didn't know any of them. So none of these are like Lemon Bowl people. You know, they're really beloved in the community. Him and his family, they just like, you instantly walk in there, you feel like you're in their family. The warmth and love of Jamaicans is something unprecedented, truly. And you really feel that when you get to Irie Kitchen. And I think that's why, yeah, I've never had a GoFundMe perform that well, but it doesn't surprise me really knowing him and his family.
Yeah. Well, and your community as well is
there
to support one another, and you have that authentic following, and there it shows.
Yeah, that's true.
Liz, thank you so much. Looking forward to making that recipe and hopping over to listen to your podcast. And I'm really excited to be a guest on it in person. I know in person very soon.
I can't wait. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for hanging out and listening to today's episode. If you were inspired by what you heard, I'd love if you shared it on social, give it a 5-star review on iTunes, and spread the word. But more than being inspired, I hope you're motivated to take action. Remember to just start. Take those steps today to get to where you want to be. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level, head on over to gethappypr.com and check out my agency and what we can do for you, or connect with me over on Instagram at Emily Richett. That's Emily Richett. See you next time.
You gon' learn this jazz today. Yes, you going to learn this jazz. Ooh, I even got your girl some jazz yesterday.